on the CFL Report. Highlights of the best Grey Cup yet. East and West. The season in review. And Commissioner Mitchell. Final notes on 1987. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery. Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the CFL Report, our final edition for 1987 as we review exactly what went on in Canadian football. We'll look at the Eastern Division, the Western Division, talk with the Commissioner, and review last week's Grey Cup at BC Place in Vancouver. As usual, my partner Leif Pedersen joins me. And Leif, I think we should maybe deal with the Eastern Division of the CFL. A pretty exciting year when you look at exactly what the Toronto Argonauts were able to accomplish.
I think so, John, and definitely as you look at high points in 1987, the Toronto Argonauts had a great year getting to the Grey Cup with a team in training camp that I don't think they were sure could accomplish that. Some of the low points, though, I think the Ottawa Rough Riders, they really have to try and get their act together in 1988, put some fans in the park along with the other teams in the CFL Eastern Conference. If they can do that, the league will definitely flourish in 88 because the product has never been better. They need a little parity in the East, and I think they'll survive with no problem.
I guess one of the most surprising things when we talk about the Eastern Division is how the Winnipeg Blue Bombers ended up in the Eastern Division, and the fact that in one sense in the Eastern final, the Blue Bombers almost threw their helmets onto the field and thought they could likely come away with a victory, and the Argonauts with that great win in the Eastern Division final.
Well, I think Winnipeg, quite honestly, they won't admit it, but I think they were really looking past Toronto to playing in the Grey Cup game. And, you know, we always thought about Toronto and Hamilton as a big rivalry. Now we have a new one. These teams don't like each other, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play in 1988. Got to get a few more people back in the park. I think that's the big push for 88. If we can do that, the league will certainly survive.
A good and almost instant, intense rivalry between the Blue Bombers and the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL in 87. With more on the Eastern Division, here's Mark Jones.
Thanks, John. The date was June 24th, 1987. The place, Bay and Bloor Street in downtown Toronto. CFL headquarters. A couple points that will forever be etched in the minds of Canadian Football League fans. For on the eve of the season opener between the Toronto Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes, Commissioner Doug Mitchell would be making a statement some 12 floors up that would not only rock the league, but change the complexion of the Eastern Division.
However, it's business as usual for the Canadian Football
Mitchell
League.
announced that the Montreal Alouettes had folded and that the league was now down to 8 teams. Winnipeg would move into the other division and become the new Beasts of the East. Like a fine wine, Tom Clements keeps getting better with age. He passed for over 4,600 yards and threw 35 TD passes, both tops in the league. Mention the untouchables and opposing defensive backs break out in a cold sweat. Perry Tuttle, Jeff Boyd, and James Murphy all topped the 1,000-yard mark in receiving yardage. Willard Reeves served as a one-man running attack. He chewed up over 1,400 yards of real estate. Add it all up, and the Blue Bombers had the right formula for first place in the East. The Hamilton Tiger Cats stumbled out of the gate at 1-3. But what else is new? But behind a red-hot Tom Porras and Steve Stapler, they reeled off 5 wins in a row and looked like they would end up in Vancouver to defend their Grey Cup title. But that's where the good news stopped in Steeltown. Porras went cold, Kerrigan stumbled, and Ken Hobart was still on the shelf with a broken ankle. Head coach Al Bruno suffered a mild heart attack and was sidelined for the rest of the season. Ted Schmitz took over but couldn't stem the tide. Then the injury bug took the Ticats by the throat. They had 20 starters miss games due to nicks and bruises over the course of the year. But in Hamilton, you haven't had a bad season until you've lost to Toronto, and you haven't had a good one until you've beaten them. But this was a bad season in Steeltown. They were 1-3 against the Boatmen in regular season and lost to Toronto in the Eastern semifinal. The Ottawa Rough Riders were 2-1 3 weeks into the season. But after that, anybody who came to watch the Rough Riders play was sentenced to a different form of capital punishment. Head coach Fred Glick received a vote of confidence midway through the season, but that didn't help turn things around. Mark Lewis was the lone bright spot in Ottawa. He caught 94 passes for 1,195 yards, but one receiver does not a team make. The Rough Riders couldn't even give away tickets. A buy one, get one free ticket drive failed miserably. President Bruce Hillary also resigned to spend more time with his business interests. In short, it's still 3rd and long in Ottawa. At the start of the season, most people thought the good ship Argonaut had nobody to steer the boat. But between Danny Barrett, Gilbert Renfro, and John Kangemi, Toronto sailed to the Grey Cup. Many people questioned Leo Cahill when he kept Gil Finnerty and traded away Cedric Minner, but it turned out to be one of Cahill's best moves. Gil the Thrill rushed for almost 900 yards and led the league with 15 touchdowns. Pardon the cliche, offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships, and the Argo defense won them the Eastern Division title. The acquisitions of Doug Tank Landry, Darnell Clash, and Glenn Kulka gave them the CFL's toughest defense by season's end. The Toronto Argonauts have a young and enthusiastic team that can only get better after making it to the Grey Cup this season. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers had 3 Shenley Award winners, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats are a little old but still have a lot of kick left in them. The feeling is that Ottawa really wasn't that bad, a 3-15 team, so when you look at the overall picture, the CFL's Eastern Division was probably as strong as it's ever been. For the players, it's a long off-season of curls, squats, and military presses in the weight room and waiting until next season. Mark Jones for the CFL Report. Now back to John.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Coming up in a moment on the CFL Report, we look back to 1987 in the CFL's Western Division, talk to the commissioner, and review last week's Grey Cup. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN, our review edition for 1987. We've discussed the East. What surprised you, Leaf, about the West?
Well, I think, John, the biggest surprise to me was how poorly the Calgary Stampeders started their season. Now, of course, when Larry Koharic took over as head coach, they finished 8-2 with his job at head coach, and I think next year that holds great things for them. Saskatchewan Roughriders, they kind of turned the corner a little bit in the second half of the season, and I expect them to be much tougher in 1988. So you know what that tells me? That 88 is going to be the year where the Western Conference maybe has the most parity that we've seen in a long time.
All right, Leif, let's take a look back now to the entire year in 1987. Ken Chillibeck narrates this review.
Thanks, John. A year of turmoil may be one way to describe what went on in the Western Division this year of the CFL. You had coaches being fired, you had a coach that resigned, players taking pay cuts. You name it, it happened here out west this year. The Saskatchewan Roughriders missed the playoffs again this year. But there was reason for optimism. Rookie quarterback Kent Austin made a big impression in the last few games of the season. And on defense, Bob Jurison, an outstanding year, 22 sacks during the regular season. John Gregory started the year and ended the year as head coach. Saskatchewan, oddly enough, the only team in the West to not make a coaching change. The Calgary Stampeders began their season with a lot of expectations. Fans had returned, and quarterback Rick Johnson was coming off an outstanding season. But Johnson and coach Bob Vespasiani didn't seem to get along. Rick Johnson at one point asked to be traded. And when the dust settled, Johnson was still there. Vespasiani was fired. Larry Koharic was the new head coach. The Stampeders finished off the season as the hottest club in the league, but they couldn't catch up to the Eskimos and the Lions and settled for 3rd place. In Vancouver, the Lions looked like the team to beat this year. James Parker, though, was out with an off-season injury, but instead newcomer Greg Stuman, Parker's replacement, filled in so well, he ended up as the Shenley Award winners, the top defensive player in the league. The Lions, though, were not without controversy. Don Matthews, after 3 straight losses, was fired. New coach was Larry Donovan. And the Lions played well under Donovan. They clinched 1st place with a come-from-behind thriller, beating the Eskimos on the last play of the game in Edmonton. It looked like the Lions would have the momentum on their side for the Western Final. In Edmonton, the Eskimos had revenge on their minds all year. They remembered last year's embarrassment in the Grey Cup. The odds were against them, though, at times. Head coach Jackie Parker resigned because of health problems. Joe Ferrighelli came in to finish off the season. And then the players were asked to take pay cuts. But despite some inconsistency, the Eskimos had the most potent offense. Brian Kelly became the league's all-time top receiver, an outstanding year. The other highlight, the gizmo, Henry Williams. Certainly the most exciting player to enter the league in a long time. The Eskimos finished in second spot and went on to beat the Stampeders in a hard-hitting affair to advance to the Western Final. In BC Place, in their best game of the season to that point, the Eskimos beat the Lions to advance to the Grey Cup. They still had a shot at revenge. Despite all the turmoil, there were a lot of exciting games out west. The cliche that any team can beat another on a given day really came true. Parity was evident in the Western Division. I'm Ken Chilliback for the CFL Report in Edmonton.
Thanks, Ken. Still ahead on this edition of the CFL Report, we'll hear from the commissioner and get Leif Pettersson's opinions about what might happen in the CFL in 1988. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. We continue now with our review of 1987 and a look back to last week's Grey Cup with David Pratt.
Thanks, John. Before the start of Sunday's game, scalpers here at the Terry Fox Plaza were buying and selling tickets for as little as $5 and $10 a piece. It was just another indication that the Grey Cup game had to be more than just a game. It had to be a showcase, and that's exactly what it was.
This attempt from the right.
The first bolt of electricity hit just 10 minutes into the first quarter. Lance Chalmik was wide on this 46-yard field goal attempt. The ball went to Henry the Gizmo Williams, and 115 yards later, the Eskimos led 7-0.
And he'll do it easily. He may not need the block. Henry Gizmo Williams, with Lisick chasing him, scores.
After the two teams traded field goals, the Argos took control. First on offense, this touchdown pass to Gil Fennerty covered 61 yards. Fennerty then capped off another Argo drive with this 4-yard run, 17-10 Toronto. Then on defense, Glenn Kulka made the hit on Matt Dunnigan. Landry did the rest. Suddenly the score, 24-10 Toronto. The hit on Dunnigan did more than cost the Eskimos a touchdown. It cost them Dunnigan. Their starting quarterback was finished for the day. An ordinary team would have used that play as an excuse for losing. However, the Eskimos are not an ordinary team, and backup quarterback Damon Allen is anything but a backup. This 6-yard toss to Sincar brought Edmonton to within 7 points at the half.
Allen touchdown pass to Marco Sincar.
Heading into the fourth quarter, the Argos still led. The score was now 27-21, but it did not stay that way long. Just 16 seconds into the final quarter, Allen hit Brian Kelly. For the first time since early in the second quarter, the Eskimos led 28-27. The Argos retook the lead on this field goal, but then Allen went back to work. Perhaps no play better shows the Argos' inability to deal with Allen's talent as a runner. Edmonton now led 35-30.
Touchdown, he slid in.
As fate would have it, another backup quarterback would have an impact, this time for the Argos. Danny Barrett, like David Allen, can run.
Second down and 7. A key play in this game. Barrett has it himself and has a touchdown. Nobody can see him score. The Eskimos were looking at pass receivers.
Barrett went 25 yards to make it 36-35 for the Argos. With time running out, the Eskimos pulled off one of the biggest plays of the game. Milson Jones went 14 yards on a screen pass to set up a last-minute field goal attempt. With just 45 seconds left on the clock, Cowrick would try to win the Grey Cup, but he would have to hit from 49 yards out.
Many people are already calling the 1987 Grey Cup game the best ever played. Whatever the case, one thing is clear. The players have done their part. Now it's up to the owners and management to do theirs. Back to you, John.
What can I say, Leaf, except that you should have listened to Vancouver Vinny.
Well, you know, John, I spent so much time going around and trying to get the best advice I could in Vancouver, and as it turned out, our old pal Vancouver Vinny was right. I didn't listen to him. I paid the price. Boy, this has happened to me a lot in the playoffs, but give Edmonton credit. They played super in the Grey Cup and really deserving champions.
Leaf, one thing you really have to look at in the Eskimo victory is the fact that being here in '86 and losing it makes the team come back just a little bit hungrier.
Well, John, I think Edmonton had a lot to prove in 1987. Of course, they got hammered by Hamilton last year. And guys like Brian Kelly, Bill Stevenson, Heck Potier, the veterans of that club, I'm sure it didn't sit well with them in the offseason. So this year they came back, they had a job to do, and they certainly played well.
Okay, Leif, a few final thoughts on '87 when we return, and a quick look ahead to 1988. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. 1987, a year of much turmoil in Canadian football. The outlook for 1988 may be a little brighter. From the '87 Grey Cup game, you've got to come off it with a big lift heading into 1988, Doug.
John, I think it was terrific. It really was an outstanding game. Just couldn't have been a better showcase for football in the Canadian Football League. And I like that, as some clubs said, we're leaving here today to start our early bird campaign for season ticket sales for the '88 season tomorrow.
Is that what everybody is going to try and do in the league right now? Ride this in local areas and build for '88? Is that the key?
Well, I think some clubs were already organized. Some, I think, as a matter of fact, had already gone out. But I think this gave us a tremendous impetus, and clubs that hadn't were going back saying we can ride the crest of this into the '88 season with good news that we had on Wednesday, a new agreement with the Players Association. The Ottawa Rough Riders have resolved all their financial problems, so we felt that all of those things would be resolved prior to Grey Cup, and even if somebody had written the script for a Grey Cup game, it couldn't have been any better, and to end the season on that note really sends us off on a great note into the '88 season.
With your plan for '88 and your salary caps and everything, is there one key concern that you have about getting off to a good start in '88?
Well, not really, I don't think. What we had this year were great games, great product on the field, which is really a tribute to the players. But I think that if you look ahead to the '88 season, what we'd like to see happen would be the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders be competitive. And I think that the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, towards the end of the season, had improved, and their fans, I think, looked at it on '87 that it was a building season. The Ottawa Rough Riders have stayed with the organization which they had, and I think they feel that they will be improved in the 1988 season as well. So to see those clubs who haven't had winning records or been in the playoffs over a long period of time, I think would be a great start for the '88 season if they got off to a good start.
'87, a year of turmoil in Canadian football. Do you think that the worst is over now?
We looked at it on the basis that it was a retrenchment year for us. We looked at it financially in advance of the season. As you know, started to work on our '88 plan really early in August of 1987, and we saw it as a retrenchment year. We see the 1988 season as a turnaround year for us.
What is the big key to that? Is that out of the gate quickly with great football, or just carrying over what you had on Grey Cup '87?
Well, I think this sort of starts us off, but also the season will start a lot later. I think that'll be a tremendous benefit for us. We'll no longer be going to training camp when the National Hockey League is still in their semifinals. So I think the late start to the season, almost into mid-July, will help us. And if we get into that competitive situation where the two clubs that haven't been winning win early in the season, I think it'll be a great start for us.
Well, Leif, what do you think? Are the real tough times in Canadian football behind the league now?
Well, I think the fact that we have financial stability, or will have it in 1988 for all the clubs in the CFL, is certainly a positive sign. But I think the problems go a little further. I think the television blackouts have to be lifted. We have to try and expose our game to as many people as possible and try and get them as fans and back into the park. When we do that, we'll be in much better shape.
Okay, Leif, that wraps up our first season together on TSN. It was a lot of fun working with you.
John, I really enjoyed it.
All right, join us again next year for the CFL Report on TSN, as well as the Canadian Football League.
It's the soul that struggles in search for more, and one who lives in risk because destiny would have no other way, it seems. These are the heroes when glory's hand is raised, the common man who goes without sole praise can fall on one whose shoulders will carry fame. These are the heroes of the game. In search for answers to questions of why, all these heroes' hearts will never die. So if pendant pulled, their heads point to the sky. The pain they feel is all inside. These are the heroes when glory's hand is raised, the common man who goes without sole praise can fall on one whose shoulders will carry fame. These are the heroes of the game. When rain falls down on common ground and the goal's one step away, a cry will rise above the crowd, and the victor's voice will say, these are the heroes when glory's hand is raised, the common man who goes without sole praise can fall on one whose shoulders will carry fame. These are the heroes of the game. These are the heroes when glory's hand is raised, the common man who goes without sole praise can fall on one whose shoulders will carry fame. These are the heroes of the game. These are the heroes of the game.